Hello, everyone. It is indeed very interesting to return to this place and this room. Some of you here may not know it, probably the vast majority, but in this room, we celebrated winning the first round. In this room, in this very room, we celebrate that we have entered the second round, and as it could not be otherwise, we celebrate that we are the first libertarian, liberal government in the history of humanity. Moreover, it is interesting because we had to choose a place to be. In the end, it became my home, the Hotel the Liberator. In other words, it couldn't be anything other than the Hotel the Liberator. And as if that weren't enough, the colors of the hotel, it is violet, which is the color of freedom advancing, the color of the political sign that will stand Argentina up and turn it into a power once again. Now, moving into the formal part, I will try not to stray too much from the speech. I won't get into complicated loops. I will try to avoid that. But to begin with, I want to greet and thank the authorities of Tech Forum for organizing an event of this importance. It is a source of pride for me as a staunch defender of free enterprise capitalism, which has produced the greatest technological expansion in our history, to address an audience that daily strives to discover new and better solutions to our everyday problems, knowing that if they are successful in their endeavor, their efforts will be richly rewarded by the market. As strange as it may sound coming from my mouth, I would also like to thank the Marxists and their nefarious ideas, because if it weren't for them, Schumpeter would never have developed his concept of creative destruction, which is what brings us all together here. For me, the topic of Schumpeter is a very interesting one, the concept of creative destruction. It is in a book called Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, and what he basically develops is this idea of creative destruction. Today, I would almost say that while these issues are not questioned within the models and literature of economic growth, which, by the way, is my area of specialization, it is very difficult to deal with the topic of regulators because are all things good? Okay. Or perhaps they are destroying in order to create something entirely new. The concept of creative destruction is very interesting because obviously, like everything that is new and like everything that is innovation, it always generates fear. So you see, for example, one of the things you find is that many politicians are afraid of this. They are afraid of the new, of the unknown. Let's say one of the big discussions is what will happen to jobs. The first thing I would like to tell you is that if the Luddites were right, which is a reflection that is made that is related to LUD, which basically was someone who lost their job because the loom appeared. So basically, they went and broke the machine. The reality is that if the Luddites were right, today the unemployment rate in the world would be 87.5%, which would make no sense. Why? Because, let's say, new jobs would not have been created. In the best of worlds, the same jobs would have remained, but the population multiplied by 8 times. Therefore, we would be facing quite an interesting problem, and that does not happen. So, there is no need to fear technological progress. That is, jobs will be destroyed, but new ones will be created. Therefore, that is not a problem. And as long as there is flexibility in the labor market, there will be no problems if we all have jobs. The problem is that politicians like control and do not like flexibility. But then the problem is not technology. The problem is politicians, as it should be. It is politicians. And then there is another topic that relates to economic growth. I mean, having deactivated this topic of the dystopian case, the answer to that is actually also found in Adam Smith, right? It has to do with the fact that the division of labor is limited by the size of the market. Therefore, all those dystopian scenarios that believe machines are directly consuming humans raise the question, for whom are these developments being made? Someone is going to have to sue them. They are human. Moreover, what they invest and allocate as resources are also human. Therefore, that dystopian scenario doesn't make sense either. Therefore, having dispelled the fears, there is another question, which is that technological progress generates increasing returns. And there lies a problem. Economic theory is not developed appropriately to account for these events. Consequently, when they see increasing returns, they associate it with monopolies and want to regulate. Politicians always want to regulate. I don't know if it's more because they want to appropriate the rents. What if they are concerned about efficiency, let's say, from a Pareto perspective, which is also a sinister concept? Sinister, it has to do, of course, yes, also sinister. I mean sinister, left, it's the same, let's say. In other words, those who called the left sinister were not mistaken. And yes, I am my law, I could not change. I must have been talking for, I don't know, 7 minutes, and only one of those is actual speech, and 6 are off topic. Things happen. This is the issue of increasing returns. And this is interesting because increasing returns in neoclassical theory are associated with monopolies. And therefore, what politicians do is regulate the monopolies. And the problem is that when they try to assimilate it into a competitive company, they kill the increasing returns, and consequently, they kill economic growth. If you look closely, what is the most regulated area of the world? It is Europe. And which region has the most miserable growth rate in the world? Europe. That is to say, for this reason, Argentina is a great opportunity, because beyond all the structural reforms we were implementing, there is nothing we hate more than regulations. In fact, we have a ministry dedicated to deregulation. But returning to the speech, I say, because at some point I had to return, I say, to put it a bit in context, it is estimated that the human species has been around for about 300,000 years, of which we were hunter-gatherers for 290,000. In other words, all that time we were nomads, in rags, without architecture, much less writing, and even less engineering. However, at some point, around 10,000 years ago, we began to cultivate the land and congregated in cities, which led to an exponential surge of development with which we colonized the entire planet. We navigated all waters, built unimaginable monuments for our ancestors, conquered mountain after mountain. Thanks to the exponentiality of this process, we have achieved that in the last 200 years, the average citizen has the standard of living of a Roman emperor. This is what I was describing as increasing returns. When looking at the evolution of GDP per capita in the Christian era, say for example between the year 0 and the year 2000, you will see something called the hockey stick, and that is found in all economic growth books. It's as if it were literally a hockey stick lying down. So you have a long constant part, and suddenly the tail lifts up. Basically, the entire part that is constant is from year 0 to 1800. And the strong growth occurs from year 1800 to 2000. In fact, the growth of GDP per capita in the first 1800 years of the Christian era was 0.02%. This means it took 3,500 years to double the GDP. And GDP per capita, let's say, from the years 1800 to 2000, multiplied by 9.5 times in a context where the population multiplied by 7. Therefore, see how the hypothesis of diminishing marginal returns was destroyed. And I would tell them that everything related to artificial intelligence will make this increase in productivity seem truly like a minuscule act. But again, returning to what we were pointing out earlier, put in mathematical terms, if we take Gutenberg's printing press from the year 1450 as the great civilizational leap of our species, we estimate that 95% of technological and scientific advancements occurred after this milestone. This means that 95% of human inventions occurred in the last 0.2% of the history of our species. That is to say, to make it clear what moment we are living in. We have never lived as we do at this moment. Never has man been better off than he is now. There is an author who fascinates me in the field of economic growth. His name is Oded Gaylor, and it seems that by citing him so much, he started following me on Twitter. Yes. In fact, they even offered to introduce me to him and everything. That the author did a truly phenomenal job in absolutely unifying the theory of economic growth. Because if you take the period between 0 and 1800, that could be perfectly explained by Malthus. And if you take the 200 years that follow in reality, while the solo model is essentially in essence one thing, aesthetically reasonable, empirically weak, and it shifts to endogenous growth models to explain the issue of acceleration and increasing returns. And the truly remarkable and brilliant genius of Oded Gaylor is that he formulates and constructs a model that reconciles the Malthusian model with endogenous growth models. And he has two starting points. The first trigger point in terms of technology relates to the printing press, because it is what gives rise to human capital. And since it is a model of human capital, as a mechanism for generating growth, two facets of human capital are involved. Not only, let's say, the amount of work, but also the training. So there is a trigger. As for the emergence of the printing press as a mechanism for the transmission of knowledge, there is another milestone related to when the population reaches 1 billion human beings. That is to say, at the particular moment when Malthus predicted the great catastrophe, I say catastrophe, indeed later predicted by the Club of Rome and obviously by everyone. The green killers who are going around, neo-Marxists, let's say they pose the problem of man with nature and want to fix the world by killing innocents, right? Call them abortionists. So let's say we indeed have a comprehensive explanation of what we are living through. And returning to printing, this evolutionary leap marked that in the last 2 centuries, we went from not being able to guarantee ourselves 2 meals a day to having conquered the atom, the air, and space, even to discussing how long it will take us to conquer Mars or how long it will be until we are replaced by robots and artificial intelligences. For everyday things, a true marvel. I don't know if you saw the new version of Optimus. It's wonderful, let's say, aside from my deep admiration for Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw what gesture Optimus makes. So now let's say I wanted a little more. So, in fact, I would say that without going any further, raise your hand if you have used ChatGPT at least once in the last 30 days. It was a given. I mean, it was a sure thing here. It was a penalty without a goalkeeper. Even Pipita Higuain wouldn't have missed this penalty in a final. Therefore, technology is the greatest demonstration of the capabilities that human beings possess, both individually and collectively. Each technological innovation is another step taken by humanity to solve a problem, allowing time for leisure to address the next one. That is to say, as you can see, I am a techno-optimist. It shows, yes. They know there is a group of techno-pessimists who see everything negatively. But well, let them go and find a place among the Marxists so they can be like the men of the cave. Of course, Marxism is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But look, because this is indeed the logic of human beings, there was darkness, yes. We invented whale oil to light the streets in our homes. The whale oil ran out, we discovered coal and the chemistry that allowed us to convert that coal into kerosene. Kerosene was not enough, so we developed electric energy. Coal is expensive and inefficient as a fuel for engines. We found and learned to process oil in an increasingly cheaper and more efficient way. Was there not enough food to feed 6 billion people? We invented the genetic revolution in agriculture that allowed us to multiply our production, and Argentina was especially a key player in this. In other words, as an old proverb goes, necessity is the mother of invention. Here, I also want to add a personal note about one of the greatest techno-optimists in the history of humanity, who is Julian Simon. It's not that popular. Pessimists are favored. I don't know why, but I imagine there must be some psychological explanation for that, but I don't know it. Look at this, because Julian Simon said that technological progress could be driven from two sides, either from the demand side or from the supply side. The growth we have recently described is growth from the demand side. That is to say, when a problem arises, if you allow prices to express themselves freely, what you will find is a reallocation of resources that leads to a solution to the problem. In fact, I often use this example when I say that entrepreneurs are social benefactors. I can do it with something recent that everyone will remember. At the moment it appeared, regarding COVID. And the problem of the pandemic, one of the recommended measures was, let's say, the use of masks and mass testing. This relates to a model that is used to analyze pandemics or epidemics called SIRE, which stands for susceptible, infected, and removed where there are. Clearly, the mask reduces the transmission rate and testing removes infected individuals more quickly, thereby decreasing the speed of transmission. I mention this also because yesterday, he left this world, let's say, that sinister being who was the disgraceful and repugnant health minister we had, an accomplice of the caveman quarantine, the largest in history and also responsible, along with former President Alberto Fernandez, for the death of 100,000 Argentinians, because if Argentina had done things like a mediocre country, there would have been 30,000 deaths. However, we surpassed 130,000. Therefore, let's say that despite the fact that he died and people like to express themselves, it seems that the dead become good. This was a son of a bitch and will be remembered as a son of a bitch. There will be justice for what was done with the masks and especially for what was done with the testing. And the reality is that economic theory had answers for this kind of thing, because if you experience a substantial and profound change in demand and you stop sending certain goods and start sending others, that translates into a change in relative prices. And you take resources from the sector that needs to contract and send them to the other. And that is feasible because there is the signal of prices. The problem is that when politicians come in and want to control prices, the resources that need to decrease do decrease, but those that should be transferred to the other sector do not, resulting in a huge loss of welfare. And in this case, these mistakes made by politicians cost the lives of many human beings. Therefore, this is also a call in favor of the ideas of freedom, the ideas to see if we had applied the ideas of freedom, we would have had many fewer deaths. And not only that, but additionally, in an anarcho-capitalist model, we would not have had yet to a worthless president who used the quarantine and extended it for political reasons to improve his image and achieve a better electoral outcome. So, when anarcho-capitalists want to bounce back the state, they are right. Therefore, one of the ways that technological progress is generated is precisely due to this situation where the movement of demand generates quasi-rent and the intention of individuals to solve problems. What this generates is the emergence of technological progress, resolving the issue. But for that, you need to have personal freedom. The other way is related to essential technological progress, driven by the supply side. That is to say, very much against the grain of all those who want to murder children in the womb of their mother. Because, basically, the question is, if I want to find a Mozart, what is the probability of finding Mozart in a population of 100 people versus a population of 1 million people? It seems to me that the result is obvious. Therefore, I found it interesting that we also understand the logic of technological progress, about how these processes are generated, how important the price system and freedom are, and that we shouldn't be killing people. Does anyone want to do the math? Perhaps to see, so we can banish these leftist nonsense that want to kill people. If I ask you, are you with the calculator? Good. Okay? Fine. Because they say there is no room for everyone on the planet. Right. So, well, let's say, to make the result clear, I do nothing. I mean, if you already know what I'm going to demonstrate, of course, so I could tell you, well, let's see how many people live per square kilometer in Japan, but what are you going to say to me? No, but they live like Japanese people. Let me ask you a question. Do you like, for example, how people live in Monaco? Okay, can someone find out how many people live per square kilometer in Monaco? If I'm not mistaken, it's 39,200, but no, check it. Check it. Well, put this 36,000. How many square kilometers does Argentina have? 3 million. Let's multiply that number by 3 million. How much does it give? No, it should be 1.08. It has to give you, let's say, a number. Well, for that, grab it and spread it out. That is 108 billion. In other words, now take that 108 to eliminate zeros, divide by 8, which is the 8 billion that live on planet Earth. So 108 divided by 8, what does that give? That is to say, it means that today in Argentina, the entire population of the planet Earth could fit in 13.5 times. And there would be the rest of the planet for them to do whatever they want. They realize that all those who go around killing people are either ignorant or just sons of bitches. But, well, after these fun parts, and obviously, I'm going to try to get back to the speech. As you can see, I can't help myself. Of course. Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to all of you. Therefore, it is thus that the miracles of the past are the mundane facts of the present, and what today seems to us just a dream will tomorrow be something of ordinary reality. Moreover, since the discovery of the Internet, which, as an example of this miraculous life, allows us to have the Library of Alexandria in our pocket, we indulge in having constant access to more information than all the great philosophers of our histories combined. The explosion in productive development over the last centuries is a testament not only to the fact that greater innovation leads to greater prosperity, but also, and above all, that it is the advancement of freedom that fosters innovation. Therefore, to the extent that we have secured civil and economic liberties, which are a natural right of man, the pace of technological development has accelerated. I believe I have repeated to the point of exhaustion that those countries that are freer are 12.5 times richer than the repressed, have 25 times fewer poor people in the standard format, and 50 times fewer in the extreme format. That is why I am deeply committed to making the freest country on the planet. Today, to move towards the future, we must reconnect with truths in the past and truths the rest of the countries are forgetting. There has always been a struggle between the private sector and the state, between those who innovate and those who regulate, between those who generate and those who confiscate, between those who explore the territory and those who then draw the maps and set the boundaries, between the supposed chaos of the daring and the order of the fearful. This struggle is today made explicit in how some states of the supposed free nations treat their technological sectors. Political leadership infected by socialism imposes regulation upon regulation, leaving the visionaries in the sector with no choice but to flee. As Ayn Rand said, when you notice that in order to produce you need to obtain permission from those who produce nothing, then you can sign without fear of being wrong that your society is doomed. Double-clicking on what I just mentioned about the individual wanting to free themselves from state control, today's events were largely characterized by representatives of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, who aim to shake things up in many aspects. The first and most important of them is that they propose to separate political power from economic control, as Hayek rightly anticipated. This is clear evidence that the individual said enough to the state and decided to put a stop where it hurts the most, which is in the pocket. The citizens of the world are tired of monetary policy and economic shamanism, of inflation, and of a Sangha not being able to triple. The monetary base is manipulated whimsically as if it were harmless, when in fact it is not only harmful, but also pushes hundreds of thousands into poverty with the push of a button, with no other purpose than to gain political advantage. If not, they should come and explain it to me, that the previous government issued 13 points of GDP in 1 year and left me with the bomb planted the next. Yes, they lost, but we really have to work to bring down inflation. That is to say, it is not a coincidence that the countries with the greatest fiscal irresponsibility, like Argentina, until we arrived, are the ones that have the most adoption and development of this type of technology. And of course, to escape from the thieving politicians, as they had to be, with how well they do it. Today, as an individual who temporarily, let it be clear, presides over the great nation of Argentina, I believe that we, the rulers, cannot turn a deaf ear to the people's cries for less state, because we can choose to ignore reality, but the consequences of ignoring reality will come knocking at our door. You can imagine that for me, the idea of getting the state out of the way is music to my ears, so the more they want of this, the better. And to understand the consequences of ignoring this request, enough to look at the last 100 years of Argentina. Destruction of capital, economic and financial crises, defaults, hyperinflations, civil unrest, productive stagnation, technological lag, and poverty levels exceeding 50%. How could it be any other way if Argentina is designed for the political elite and not for the citizens? If in Argentina even machines pay gross income taxes, check taxes, customs duties, and a myriad of taxes that end up in the pockets of a few, harming the whole. A few days ago, a video went viral comparing a national olive pitter with a European one, and the European one pitted olives 40 times faster. Why can they do it in Europe and not here? Well, it has to do with all the obstacles and regulations that exist here. As I mentioned before, to retrace this path, we must reconnect with truths that are deep in the past of our history. This is what we have come to do: embrace trade and competition and turn them into our highest standards so that Argentinians can access cutting-edge technology at competitive prices without enriching useless customs officials along the way, allowing the productivity of all our workers to be enhanced, enabling them to access better tools from around the world that multiply the value generated by Argentinians. As we proposed in the Pact of May, we aim and are working to propose a federal model marked by fiscal competition, with few national taxes to ensure the proper functioning of the state and security, so that each province and municipality can decide what tax burden they want to impose on their citizens, allowing them to choose the lifestyle they wish to live and to know exactly what they receive or do not receive for the taxes they pay. In fact, we are making progress on this, because we are. Notice that one of the things we are doing is forcing the removal of municipal fees from the invoices. And those who resist and do not want to comply, we are taking away their branches of Banco Nación. So let's say, and if not, let's propose to Banco Nación that they separate it so that they know exactly how much relates to the service and how much relates to the fiscal degenerates. Thus, we can say that we are also starting to see this in prices and how, let's say, those who are taxing them are the ones ruining their lives. Thus, let's say, we are also starting to generate competition between provinces and between municipalities. That is to say, provinces and municipalities with fiscal responsibility will be attractive and will prosper, while those that do not will have to explain to their voters why their provinces are becoming poorer. Do you know what it is like for a mayor, for example, to have this in their face all day? All. Should I explain to them, let's say, that they are being charged more taxes to have a worse life than others? It will be, let's say, you don't realize at this moment what we are living through. It's wonderful. We are breaking all the foundations of this lie called state. In other words, there is no other way. We want to become attractive again to capital and to citizens from all over the world, as we were 100 years ago, when we were the greatest land of opportunities in the world, even if it... When people left Europe, they chose either to go to the United States, which was right in front of them, so to speak, or to come to a very distant place, which was Argentina. It's incredible because under those conditions, at the time, it was much riskier to come to Argentina. So just imagine how attractive it was. And basically, what we want is to be a promised land again. At the same time, it is interesting because while Argentina opens up to competition, many leading countries in the world are turning in the opposite direction. This is incredible, but we have already realized after 100 years that we missed the mark and this was going nowhere. The incredible thing is that we realized it. We started to turn back, and there are others who are copying the Argentine model. It's like shooting oneself in the foot. I personally don't understand it. That's why many times I go to international forums and tell them, I come from an apocalyptic future. What you are doing, we already did. It doesn't work. The problem is that there is a question of incompatibility of incentives. If you remember, during the campaign I used to say that while a traditional politician asks for your vote to gain the power to transform your life, and in the process transforms their own, we in the election we were holding asked for the vote to return power to the citizens so that they could be the architects of their own future. Evidently, in the politician's box, the difference is substantial. That is to say, the more corrupt the politician, the more they will prefer the other model, the more they will like intervention, and the more they will like socialist benevolence. Why? Because in the middle, they end up with more money. Like the saying goes, The one who distributes keeps the best part? Well, that's what it's about. So we don't like that model. We want to restore freedom to the citizens, and we are indeed doing so. Look at this, because this is interesting. We, with the foundational law, indeed, if the DNU made a reform, the structural reform is 8 times larger than the one Menem implemented, considering that Menem made the largest structural reform in Argentine history. In other words, you are truly facing a historic moment where we made the largest structural reform in Argentine history. And we did this with 15% of the Chamber of Deputies and 10% of the Senate. In other words, what I want to tell you is that what seemed impossible, we accomplished. There is nothing that is impossible. None of your dreams are impossible. All your dreams can come true. The only thing you need is to have confidence. And you will have confidence when you stand in your own shoes and not when the state is doing it for you, because then you will do nothing. Moreover, those 2 reforms are actually 800, but in 2 packages, which implies a jump in the levels of economic freedom by 90 positions. That is to say, today, Argentina would institutionally start to resemble countries like Germany, like France, like Italy, but to me, that is not enough. We have 200 pending structural reforms, and our goal is to become, without a doubt, in the freest country on the planet, and do not doubt that we will achieve it. So, while some Western powers underestimate the role of freedom in technological development and consequently in prosperity itself, Argentina once again embraces the ideas of freedom after more than a century. And while developed countries become burdened with unjustified regulations and drive away technological investment, we remove regulations and invite Argentine and global capital to develop here. We want to be a refuge for those who bet on technological development, both here and across the globe, because we trust in the natural relationship between freedom, innovation, and economic progress. As a country, we have learned that the alternative to freedom, innovation, and progress is the misery we have become accustomed to living in. And besides, well, we resisted and wanted to move forward based on what we did. On November 19th of last year, when we turned our backs on the populists and decided to elect a libertarian liberal for the first time in the history of humanity, let's celebrate it here. And also because we know that the unique condition that distinguishes human beings from animals, which is the ability to create, resides in a basic tenet of the human spirit, to always go beyond. Because when we reach a goal, we do not rest on our laurels. We ask ourselves what comes next and seek the next frontier. Always move forward, never backward. That is why technological optimism is almost a moral obligation, because our future depends on it. And that is why we cannot lose that Promethean spirit, that curiosity which is so human, nor the courage to pursue it. We cannot allow those who fear change to intimidate us, and in a flagrant act of intellectual dishonesty, they see it only as a source of evils when history indicates the opposite. Technological innovation is nothing more than doing more with less. One should not be afraid of it. On the contrary, one should be afraid of inertia, of stillness. One should be afraid of stagnation. Moreover, the only thing to be afraid of is fear itself. Well, they already know us. We are not afraid clearly. And when we encounter an obstacle, we do not slow down, we accelerate. This is how we do things, and this is how we are going to lift Argentina out of the 100 years of misery to which it has been condemned. Because if we embrace the seat of freedom again, which once made us great, I have no doubt that Argentina will be prosperous, and I have no doubt that the future will be better than the present. Thank you very much. May God bless the Argentines, and may the strength of heaven be with us. Long live freedom. Hello.
Long live freedom, damn it! Damn it!
Don't miss out on our latest updates and exciting content. Make sure to hit the subscribe button now.
They are of me. I am the king of a lost world. I am the king of your father. All the accomplices are of my appetite.